As I'm isolated at home as required, and I sure hope you are too, I got to thinking about what I might suggest to you to utilize your free time at home to add to your wine IQ and have some fun too.
Hello, and welcome back. You're tuned in to Wine and Nine. Here's your host, Bob Cappuccino.
First, please let me send my best wishes to each and every one of you to get through this, let's call it, very interesting time. I hope and pray that I can give you a few minutes away from it all, and what better way than to talk about wine. Now, to make things interesting, I want to recommend some simple and easy wine tastings you can conduct by yourself, or if you share the idea with some friends, a group tasting on Skype or Zoom or whatever, even a good old conference call. And I'll give you some food recommendations to kind of take you along with that too. Now, there are quite a few possible tastings. You should contact your local wine merchant and arrange to have the wines delivered so you don't have to put yourself at risk. So here's my idea number one, Chardonnay. Now, we know there are many different styles of this popular varietal. Some are fermented in steel tank and bottled with no barrel aging, and they're fruity, bright, and crisp. Some are fermented in steel tank and bottled with no barrel aging. They're fruity, bright, and crisp. Others are fermented in tank or in barrel and allowed to rest on the lees. Now, the lees are the non-soluble solids and the dead yeast cells that will precipitate as the wine ferments out, and they'll generally sink to the bottom of the tank, and so the wine gets clear. But you leave the lees in there, and if you stir them up every so often, it adds extra body and extra flavor and aromas to the finished wine. Now, still other Chardonnays are barrel fermented in oak barrels, and they're allowed to go through even another process called malolactic fermentation. Now, here is where the natural malic acidity that you find in grapes, which is kind of like the acidity you also find in like a green apple, is converted to a softer lactic acidity, which is the acidity you find in dairy products. And this is where we start using the terms in description that are buttery, creamy. And they'll give a wine that's bolder in flavor, usually deeper in color, and really full flavored. Now, each of these styles has its distinct merits. But have you ever tried them side by side? Ask your merchant to give you one of each types of these wines. A steel tank fermented, no oak, one that's been fermented on the lees, and one that's been barrel fermented and has malolactic fermentation. Taste and compare them. Try them with something you cook and see how they change, how they complement or contrast. You might like one of them better before you have food, and then change your mind completely once you put it together with your meal. You could try from France a Macon Village or Chablis, which is a Chardonnay wine, a Bourgogne Blanc, and a Merceau. 3 of those wines. They're all Chardonnay based. Or try an unoaked Chardonnay, a barrel fermented Chardonnay from Sonoma, and a full-blown Napa Chardonnay with barrel and malolactic fermentation. Now, here a simple roast chicken or grilled swordfish, maybe even with a little tomato salsa, would be a nice combination to do and have with these Chardonnays. My second idea is the Riesling grape. Now, Riesling is one of the world's most noble grapes, but kind of like Rodney Dangerfield, it gets no respect. Domestic Rieslings have a tendency to be a bit one-dimensional and on the sweet side, while Rieslings from Alsace in France are usually quite dry. But those Rieslings that are made in Germany, perhaps the most famous of the Rieslings, are made at various levels of sweetness called Prädikats, which is basically a way of saying pedigree. In the vineyard, they will harvest at different levels of sugar sweetness in the grapes. And so at each level that they harvest, they'll wind up with a wine that'll be lighter in alcohol and maybe heavier in residual sugar. Okay? So, QBA is the basic level with light fruit. The next step up is called Cabinet, which is slightly more sweet, and only just slightly more fruity than sweet, let's say. Spätlese, which means late harvest, and usually will have a little bit more noticeable residual sugar. And then finally, Auslese, which is very positively, boldly fruited and sweet. There are 2 others, Beerenauslese and Trockenbeerenauslese, and they're the highest Prädikats, but they're definitely sweet dessert wines. They're very rare and they're expensive. Rieslings are wines with great intensity of fruit and racy, bold acidity. And though they're white wines, they also age unimaginably well. Ask your merchant to match the wines from the same growing districts. For example, there's vineyards along the Mosel River, and there are vineyards along the Rhine River. So try and either keep them, 3 Rhine wines or 3 Mosel wines, just so you have better perspective, okay? Now, you may really enjoy the dry style as an aperitif, while the Cabernet may be nice with white flaky fish. The Spätlese will surprise you and may become your favorite wine by the glass. Now, this is a wine that I really enjoy with fish. I like it with broiled halibut or shrimp, but it's also nice with a loin of pork. So give those a try. My third idea is kind of interesting. Do you like bubbles? How about comparing a Prosecco from Italy, a Cava from Spain, and an extra dry Champagne from France? If Champagne is a bit pricey, you could substitute a Crémant d'Alsace, which is a sparkling wine from the Alsace region of France, or Crémant de Bourgogne, which is a sparkling wine from the Burgundy region. Now, these are dissimilar in the grapes that are used, and some of the processes are the same, because it takes time to create the bubbles in the bottle or the tank. But ask your merchant for the particulars on each of these. They all offer truly refreshing, uplifting wines. Maybe that's just what we need right now. Hey, fry up some chicken or some shrimp, or really splurge and boil a lobster. Fried foods and bubbles go really well, and of course, lobster with a nice bottle of champagne or a Prosecco is just lovely. My fourth idea is, and I hear you saying, okay, what about red wines, Bob? I like red wines. Well, let's try 3 wines from Bordeaux. Let's try 2 wines from the Médoc, which is the western side of the Gironde River in Bordeaux. And we'll take 1 from Saint-Emilion, which is on the left bank of the Gironde River in Bordeaux. So we'll look for 1 wine, have it labeled Bordeaux Supérieur, and 1 wine from the Médoc with a village name, say Saint-Julien or Margaux or Listrac. Now try to find ones that are predominantly Cabernet Sauvignon. These are blends, so they'll be predominantly Cab with some Merlot or some Cab Franc, but in this instance, from the Médoc, you want to try wines that are predominantly Cab. Okay? Now we want to also include a wine from across the river in Saint-Emilion. And the wines in Saint-Emilion will be predominantly Merlot, and that's good. We want to have that comparison between the Médoc Cabernet and the Saint-Emilion Merlot. Ask your wine merchant to choose vintages that are close to each other, if not exactly the same. And keep in mind that a great vintage in the Médoc is not necessarily a great vintage in Saint-Emilion, and vice versa. Now, with this group of wines, you want to have, my favorite would be lamb burgers. I love lamb with these types of wines. Or a New York strip would be just great. So by now, I'm sure you get the idea that I'm going for. So chat with your wine merchant and choose 3 different Pinot Noirs. 1 from Russian River, 1 from Oregon, 1 from Carneros. Grill up a salmon steak and you have a wonderful combination here. Or try 3 Sauvignon Blancs from Sancerre, from New Zealand and from California. And taste them with a goat milk cheese, a chèvre. So take a few chances. If nothing else, I'm sure you won't be bored. And with 3 open bottles of nice wine, you should have a lovely evening. Now, try some of my food recommendations. You won't be sorry. All these wines are terrific at the table and for dining or quaffing. This is Bob Cappuccino for Wine and Nine. Thanks for giving me a few minutes of your day. Stay home, stay safe, drink wine.